in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection. Okay, and that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. True. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Hi, my name is Sabrina. I'll be your host today for The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. And my guest today is Kira. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay. Nervous, but I'm okay.
Well, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story here?
Okay. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
My name is Kira. I'm 37. And I live in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm a mother of 3. And I'm a single mother, like a very single mother. You know, that's not unique to me, unfortunately, but that's the way it is. I'd like to say some other things about who I am, but being within a situation such as this, you know, it pretty much consumes who I am and until it's over.
Yeah.
But so I have 3 kids. I have one who's in my custody, who has been in my custody, back in my custody since he was 3. He's 9 now. Prior to that, I think it's important to say because it's just the truth, and I'm very transparent, and I think it's important to just be truth. You know, truth. That's all I know how to be, especially with a situation like this. I feel as if the truth supports me, and I feel as if the truth that supports me and that is relevant and matters more and more is being hidden, you know, on purpose, not by me. So I'm like, I want truth seekers. I want people to look for it, you know, because mine is already out there. And so that's what I'm going to put out there first. So I'm in recovery, and I have been for several years. I've been successfully clean and sober pretty much since before I got him back. I say pretty much because I did break my leg a few years later, and that, you know, it didn't start me back in my addiction, but it almost did, you know, and I caught that. So I caught it though, and you know, so that I think it speaks volumes that, and to most people they say that, you know, my son's 9, he's been back with me since he was 3, and he has not been removed since. However, the past few years, I've been going through, and I barely got him back. Let me say that. I have an oldest daughter, and I won't say a whole lot about that because she ultimately did not get reunified with me. And she's about to be 18, and God does everything the way he's supposed to, for, you know, the way it's supposed to be done, and God's in charge. And for that reason, I feel that it was probably you know, it was the right thing. It was the right thing. But at the time, it wasn't right for like the way it was supposed to be. She should have came home to me. If the system had done what they're supposed to do, there's no reason I should have got my 3-year-old son back and not my 11-year-old daughter. And they were both in the same place, and they tried to keep them both, and I barely got him back. So when I got him, like I said, barely, I was determined, you know, to never lose him again. And then I had a daughter. She's now about to be 5, but she was born with an unspecified genetic condition. One of her genes was doubled. So it doesn't even have a name. It's really rare. Like hers doesn't even have a name. There's things that are close to it, you know, like Pierpont, that's also very rare. The doctor sat me down and gave me the results when we got him and said, because I blame myself, you know, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. He was like, well, no, this is the most infinite answers, black and white, you can get, that there's nothing you did or nothing you could have done to change this, you know, it's just a genetic condition. She goes, it affects her different ways. Her DNA is different. I say she's got angel DNA because it's just different. You know, she's just different. Like she's small for her age. She is delayed within the milestones that society, you know, puts on our kids, but like, and she has health differences. Like she's just anatomically different. Her eyes have differences. Her, you know, her bowels were like rotated, just like things. So yeah, things are, so she had to have surgery really young and stuff like that. So anyway, with that being said, a couple years, after she was born, and there were some struggles, like, you know, I just got my son back, and like a couple of years after having him back, I had another daughter, but I was in a relationship at the time and it was good. And, you know, when she was born, it threw us off because we weren't expecting that. And so when we broke up, and I still struggled, but like I said, I broke my leg at one point, but I still stayed clean. I was determined. And so when my daughter was about 2, close to 2, Children's Services got involved. They came knocking on my door. I don't remember exactly what they said at the time. Try not to get too close on the camera. I don't know. I don't remember. I know that someone had said something. I wish I had more to say to you than that, but it was some kind of accusations that were not true and weren't founded. You know, if they hear my name, they're going to come. I know that. You know what I'm saying? Because I've had history with them. Yeah. And they're always going to question my sobriety. I know that. But and I don't know if it was just the hospital or if it was, you know, my ex and his whatever he was doing, but ultimately the concerns were that like I wasn't feeding her or something like correctly because she was having trouble with gaining weight and keeping it. Now, mind you, within this unspecified genetic condition, one of the few things that they have very little data. It's not very old. It's like 1998 is the first thing but one of the few things that they do have on that data, it says that she is going to be small for her age, that she has issues with weight gain and, you know, feeding differences. And, you know, so anyway, they came and they were, you know, I allowed them to open a voluntary case because ultimately the intake worker did their investigation, got all into my life. I signed off on everything they needed because I didn't even think I had a choice. You know, I've been through this before, but I didn't have anything to hide either. So the intake worker was like, well, I did what I was supposed to do. I don't remember exact words, but I did our intake, and I have no concerns for the children. I have no concerns for your ability or commitment to wanting to take care of them. But I am concerned about you being able to take care of yourself. You have a very full plate. We want to put supportive services in place to help you. That's what this was supposed to be from the very beginning. That was never, and still to this day, has never actually been anything that's happened. So right away.
I've heard this before. Yep.
Yeah. Right away, there's like, you know, they come and they meet with me, and anything that I say that I might be able to use help with, like getting to my daughter's medical appointments or whatever, coordinating them, you know, they're like, well, no, I asked my boss and she said we can't because we've helped you before, meaning like 6 years prior or whatever, a long time ago. They gave me just whatever, like it's something completely different, a completely different situation. And, but anyway, that was what I would get, you know, for when it came to that. And so I'd still meet with her, and I would as transparent as I am, and it doesn't work in my favor, I'm not good at kissing people's butt. I'd be like, well, what are we doing here? You know, but and they keep coming, and I had mandated reporters still to this day, and at that time in my life, because of the people that I put in our lives, you know, counselors that I've had my son linked with since he came back, and counselors for myself that come into our home, and like therapists for my daughter. And none of these people have ever to this day been any of them. And I'm telling you, there were several, when my daughter's here, there's about 5, and I'm not exaggerating, like between 3 and 5 more that come in on a weekly basis. Like I said, my son, we usually each have a counselor. Right now we have a family counselor that comes in here 3 times a week that I got us linked with. And actually we're only involved with that because of this exact situation and what it's doing to us and what it's doing to him. We are needing that much more, you know? So anyway, I'm trying to stay on topic, but there's so much, you know, there's just so much. But basically, I had all these mandated reporters in our home, people, and many of them for her, you know, a nurse that would come just to weigh her once a week to check up on her weight and stuff. And none of these people had a problem with anything that I was doing. We all saw what was going on with her weight fluctuating. That had always happened. There were always reasons for it. And you know, I could go into those, but I don't necessarily, you know, short of being asked to go into them individually or something. I just want to try to be able to, we don't have all day, you know what I mean? So with that being, I'll give a couple examples, but basically there was always a reason. And even, especially today, after having her removed and everything, throughout this entire process, the more that happens, the more things that come to surface and they do, it always points away from me. Like I am not the reason for this happen, you know? So, and it's like the more, and I'll go back to trying to be, you know, in order, but it's like the more, every time something happens and I'm like, okay, this is it. Okay, so you see what's happening, you see it's on me, or, you know, and even at this point, you know, at first it's just her medical things or, you know, things we're finding out that are different like that. And now it's becoming like them doing stuff that's wrong, them making mistakes, them getting my daughter hurt and stuff. And I'm like, seriously, like the longer this goes on, the more this truth supports me and the more they try to hide it and dig their heels in even further and try to keep her even more. So back to that, like around them being involved, you know, the caseworker would come in. I was very honest with her about everything, about the struggles we were having with her dad, because when we were together, it was great. When we weren't, it wasn't. He was like MIA and I wanted him around, and I'd be like, try to get him involved, you know, like have him help him. She'd be like, well, I can't do that. Can't do anything. Can't make him do anything. He wouldn't cooperate. I would. She told me that we didn't even have to, really, especially him, but I still did. And, you know, I did their drug screens when they asked them, even though they weren't relevant. They weren't relevant to this case. They never have been. They still aren't to this day. It is only because of my historical past and the fact that I at one time did struggle with substance abuse. With that being said, I'm aware that is an ongoing issue that I will always have to be on my toes about. I'm clear on that. I also want to just say briefly that when I lost my children before, that was a part of it. However, it wasn't all of it. Like it started out with the DV. I got hurt by my kid's dad, real bad, you know, and that's what started that. But I relapsed and I had trouble getting clean. And my oldest daughter she would, you know, even though that was me relapsing. So I was clean when my son was born, but my oldest daughter, who was like, you know, 9, then 11 throughout that time, she had been, you know, with me through relapsing and not like abused or molested or anything like that, but just along with the chaos that comes with addiction. You know what I mean? Like that's what so I played a part in that removal, a huge part. I played even a part in her not coming home, a huge part. Like I can take that. Like I know that I find my power where I find my part. And that's why it sounds like when I tell this story, which I need to get back to telling, but you know, even my lawyer they'll look at me and be like, say that I'm trying to blame other people. And at this point, I've decided to start responding to them with that. Yes, I am, because it's their fault. But prior to then, I would be like, no, I'm not, because I want to find my part. I want to find where I can change something, but I can't because it's not me. So anyway,
like you do that on purpose because they want the blame to be on you and they want everything to be on you to look bad in every way, shape, or form, instead of on their workers. And, you know, the whole court system, the CPS workers, even the public defenders, everybody is in on it together. And it's like they're not really there to help you get your child back. And then on top of it, to make you look like a monster. And of course, that's going to break down any parent. You know, I don't really know what they expect. And to have a child with all those issues and then your medical issues, that's a lot. And I can't even believe that they are going to attack you on top of that. So what happened? Did they step in and remove your daughter?
So they were removing her, you know, but I think at least for a while they were asking for me, but I appreciate it so much. And just recently it was like, but you know, like I said,
you're breaking up a little bit on us here.
Sorry, is it better? Better?
Almost.
Okay. They were playing her out there. Is it here?
Okay, there you are.
Cool. So kind of that I want to do, that is how they want to post it. And they also like to put a position here, and I especially where I am from.
You're breaking up again on. I can't hear anything you're saying. I'm so sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, we have so so I was also in the position of not only constantly being blamed and trying.
We'll give you a few minutes here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, for a while, I think they were saying they were not taking her. But as much as I was very grateful, overly grateful, the fact of the matter is they weren't taking her because they shouldn't have taken her. They should have never taken her. They had people in my home, and that's what they said. There are people in the home. No one's taking her. But ultimately, there came a time where they did take her. My daughter had lost some more weight. Mind you, at the time that this happened and that our local children's hospital stepped in and removed her from me as if I was the issue. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So ultimately they did. Eventually they did take her because her weight kept going up and down. But I'd like to say that, first of all, at that time, that extreme weight loss, other than her genetic differences, it started with her catching pneumonia, and she couldn't gain it back. And I also found out right around the time they took her that the apartment we had moved into and had lived in for about a year and moved in right before she caught pneumonia was infested with mold. And I proved it. I have pictures of it. They saw it. I paid to get it tested. It was there, you know, and I still have that proof and stuff. And I also found research done by doctors and researchers to link malnutrition to toxic mold in babies, like direct link. So that was affecting her. And right away, everybody, including my lawyers, like, you can't prove it. So, you know, quit talking about that. But it's true. But aside from that, as this time continued, because ultimately they kept her in custody for around a little bit over a year. You know, COVID hit, so there was always that excuse. Every 90 days, they dismissed and refiled, you know, because they're supposed to drop it in 90 days. Well, what they did is they drop it and refile. And they had charged me with medical neglect and that dependency or whatever. So after it had been a year, over a year, and all those COVID times, and that was, you know, a lot of the excuse, and then the dismiss and refiles, that I started saying, what is this? Dismiss and refile. My attorney's like, it's a loophole in the law. Because I did retain an attorney, even though I have no money to do that. Nobody in my position would do it. I got the money and I retained an attorney. That retainer ran out a long time ago, even though it was significant. And she ended up being, I'll just leave that there. But like, but the whole time the case was, I mean, I saw her like dropping her jaw and shaking her head and saying, I don't know what this is. Like, I can't, she's been doing this forever, you know, like, I don't know what this is about. Like, but as they kept her throughout this time, basically, no matter what I did, I knocked out their case plan within a few months because I was already doing everything they would have asked me to do anyway. And it didn't matter. Nothing I could do mattered. They'd go in there and they'd say, oh, well, she missed she missed a screen, or she missed 2 screens, because they would have me go in there weekly, you know, randomly weekly. And sometimes I'd miss one or whatever. And they do, even though it has nothing to do with it, but whatever. And then if I didn't miss one, they'd say, well, we have trial in a few months, so we just ask that you don't change any of the orders. And what I come to understand, because of my experience with them previously and this experience with them now even more so, that they held on to her as long as they possibly could, hoping and expecting me to break like so many of us do. Absolutely. And when I didn't break in a year, they had to give her back. So that's what happened. They gave her back with no services put in place for that to transition. They hadn't given me more visits or even had visits in my home. Not that I know how to take care of her, but I'm just saying, like, it was just me and my son the whole time, doing everything we can to function in a everyday trauma. You know, both of us are traumatized.
They didn't give you services, or you completed the services?
No, they didn't give me any. The only service they gave me was requirements, telling me stuff I had to do, like drug screens. Those services that she has in her life, the therapies and stuff that she's linked with, I linked her with in the very beginning of her life. And in fact, when she came back, not only was there no services put in place to help with that reunification, because they set me up for failure. Is what happened. And I'm not saying this because I want that to be the truth. That's just because that's what it is. Like, so when they sent her back, not only did she not have any extra services, but she also didn't even have all the services she should have had because she came back without a Board of Duty referral, which would have been a very big help for us, but she didn't have it anymore. And so when they sent her back, it was still kind of COVID. Kids were still virtual, and then they became not virtual. And I'm a single parent again. Her dad hasn't stepped up any better, although in that courtroom, and I won't go too much into that because I don't want to villainize him. We both have our issues, but he caught a case. He caught a case that was ultimately victimizing my children and I during the first, case. They knew about it. They heard about it from my kid. It wasn't me that pressed the charges, and every time and I don't play the victim well because I get angry. I don't, and I play right into their whatever the narrative that they're trying to paint. But it is. So every time we go into court, I'm victimized again because I'm blamed for everything in every way, including what he's done, and they're minimizing what he's done, and they minimize the good that I've done, and they, how they do, and that was it was basically they wanted to hand my daughter to him on a silver platter, and come a little bit later in the story, I'll be able to tell you where they did, and she got hurt. But so that first time, when they gave her back in the GAL, so I had 2 GALs when I filled out with Children's Services before, and like I said, even that went the way it wasn't supposed to go. But I can take my part, and I had a big enough part that I'm just, that is what it is. But I had 2 GALs then, and thank God for them doing their job, because other than God, that's why I did get my son back, because they weren't for that. Even though Children's Services filed to keep them permanently and continued to file to keep them permanently, it was only because of the GALs that actually did their job and said, no, he should go home. This one, never from the beginning has she ever taken her own stance. Has she ever put any work into it? And then she goes in and says whatever she has to say to make it sound like she has a reason to believe what she believes, and she's just saying whatever they want her to say. And if we'd ever get a trial, which we never will, I know we're not going to. We never had one before, and we're not going to get one now, because then they have to prove what they're saying, and they can't. When they go into these hearings, they don't have to prove it. They get to say whatever they want to say, and when we try to defend it, or my attorney tries to defend it, she gets told, well, that's for trial, and they can say whatever they want, no matter how untrue it is, and it doesn't ever get challenged, and I can't say anything. And so
I'm in California, and when I was going through it, they straight out told me that this is family court, and we go off of hearsay. Nobody has to prove anything. And that is just shocking. I was so shocked to find that out. And
at least they said it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not okay. Like, it's crap. You're right. Like, but I was joking because they don't say it here. They act like there's some kind of sanity within the system, and it's insane. It's insane. When I heard them on here say, the criminal, and I used to be in criminal stuff, when I was an addict years and years ago. And yeah, he's right. Even then, even in poverty as a criminal, an addict, I had more rights then. I have had absolutely no rights with my children at all. They have had no rights. My son, like I said, I've kept him the whole time, and they have had me feeling as if I was lucky to do it. And it wasn't until recently that I stopped saying, well, I am grateful. At least they haven't taken him. No, you know what? You didn't take him because that's the wrong thing to do. And also because that's going to look a little bit different because you have a 9-year-old there that's got a mouth, and he's not going to just let you say whatever you want to say. You can't make things up because my daughter can't talk, and he can. And so there's probably some other, even possibly more sinister reasons behind it, when it comes to, the reasons that people don't really want to talk about as far as what fuels the situation, follow the money. That's all you got to do to figure out what's going on, because none of this makes any sense unless it's because, like I said that to my caseworker recently, and I need to get back on track, but I said something about, you keep my special needs child in the system as long as you can, just pumping the money in the system. And she was like, please, it takes more money. I'm like, yeah, it does, which shows exactly how you cut the funding. That's what this is about, because it does take a lot more money than it would to just keep it with me. So what's that about?
I think they get extra funding for special needs children.
Oh, yeah.
Because I keep hearing over and over again, people with children that have autism, and I mean, a lot of that actually. And just, I don't understand how anybody in their right mind can say that a child with special needs shouldn't be with their own parents who they're comfortable with.
Even more so, right?
Oh, yeah. So I'm sorry. Continue.
No, you're fine. You're right. That's what I'm saying. And I said that to them too recently. Like, I'm telling them stuff like they already know, like that even in the best and of the worst, like of the best foster homes and of the worst homes, we know by now that it is still almost always better to keep them with your family, right? This is like, and this isn't the worst. And my daughter already has special needs, so she already can't talk. She's already got a disadvantage, and she shouldn't have had these core issues. My oldest two, well, my youngest one, he barely remembers that. He feels like he's been with me his whole life because of that time felt short to him, by now. But still, there's some core issues there that I have to take some blame for. And especially with my oldest daughter, she'll be coming back around soon. I heard from her. She's about to be of age and graduating and stuff. There's some stuff I got to take there, but this one shouldn't have that stuff. She shouldn't have to deal with that. And I did everything, and I am doing everything that I could possibly to make sure that didn't happen, and it still happened, and it's not right. So so when they took her, they put her in a foster home. After I was fighting to get a second opinion. Yeah, I had to fight, of course, because we don't have any rights. I had to get the magistrate to order them to take me for a second opinion, to take her for a second opinion, because he was like, yeah, why do I have to even? And finally, my attorney went in there, like, because they're not doing it. They won't let us do it. They're saying, and so he's like, okay, yeah, take her to the second opinion or whatever. So we went to another hospital, and as soon as we got to another hospital, they immediately changed her feeding tube from to a different type of feeding tube that bypassed her so she couldn't vomit, because she was vomiting frequently, large volumes, and could have died any of the times that she was in their custody. I have pictures from the foster mom. She was continuously vomiting, and she could die. Like, the aspiration, that's why she's on a feeding tube. And so even that was a problem that was happening from the very beginning, that when they first took her, she was in the hospital for a month, because waiting for placement, and every day in the hospital she's vomiting, and even the hospital, and I'm like, what is going on here? And so then we went to the second opinion, and right away they changed her feeding tube. So that right there is a sign that someone was not making a choice that they should have made, and that wasn't me, right? Like, that's a doctor choice that should have been made. So that happened. And so so anyway, it didn't matter. Like I said, they ignored that. They kept her, and then by the time they gave her back, it was like, my attorney suggested that I just go ahead and move forward uncontested with the dependency, which I felt uneasy about then, and I wish I hadn't. But at the same time, she said, well, I wasn't worried about them following me. I didn't do anything wrong. And but we know, I didn't know, but what that dependency is, what I was told, is that by no fault of my own, intervention was needed. And that's what it meant on my case. But it's a whole bunch of crap, for one. And whatever. It was just basically to cover their ass, and so that I had to let them stay in my life, and so that's what they did. They dropped the neglect because they couldn't prove it, period. That's why, because they weren't going to win. That's why they dropped it, and they haven't picked it back up. So she was back with me for 5 months, and I had to head on address issues that were serious issues that they clearly weren't dealing with her. She was gagging nonstop every day, all day. Gosh. Yeah. So her weight was, okay, so she was back with me for 5 months. Over that 5 month period, she had lost a total of 2 pounds, and by the time they took her back, she had gained it all back. And I had documentation in black and white from this other hospital that I took her through to. You guys said don't use names, so I'm just trying to keep it like that. That literally said in black and white, and I still have it, because I am going to sue them on behalf of my children and myself. And I'm certain we'll win. Absolutely, my kids will win. I know they will, and I think I will too at this point. But and I think they don't have a whole lot of that fear because they're used to getting away with it. But I think they have a little bit of concern, and I think that's another reason why they're holding on to her like this, waiting for me to break. Like, man, because just the thought of they have been wrong. And so when they gave her back, I was addressing all these things, and even down to the point of, like I said, in black and white, I have in writing from the doctor that says, when she showed up at this hospital, this is what she presented. This is, and I'm just doing this to try to keep it simple and as short as possible. This is what she presented. This is what we did. Basically what I've been saying was happening that the other hospital was ignoring. And this is what we did to change it. And this helped. And then she started gaining weight back. And so it straight right there said that in black and white, that this could have been what was affecting her weight loss and electrolyte imbalance. It's like black and white, not my fault. Okay. So, but again, they went into court after 5 months. What they were just going to do is ask for another extension and to stay in our lives, right? But what they did is they went into court and asked to take her back, and they lied. They lied and said that because we know they're supposed to not do that unless, number one, they exhaust all resources to keep them with you, and they didn't exhaust anything and try to do anything to keep her with me. They did the opposite. And number two, they have to feel like she's in imminent danger and they knew she wasn't. I've even had my caseworker admit that to my face several times. Like, you knew she wasn't in imminent danger of being hurt. You knew that her weight loss that she gained back. You knew what it was. And they're like, and then she'll say, well, that wasn't our only concern. Oh, because I had missed their drug screens during the time period I was taking care of my daughter's medical care because they were irrelevant. They didn't matter. You know what I mean? And I was taking care of my daughter. So just whatever they could. So anyway, and I wanted to also tell you this. Hold on, you can't say that. You gotta go to the room if you're going to talk like that on the phone. But so another thing that's important is that when I got her home, right away, this local hospital here, and they've started changing the way that they're communicating with me too. I think they're starting to see something, but I actually think that in the beginning of when this all started coming out, maybe they and maybe even Children's Services to a certain degree in the very, very beginning did have some concerns and have some questions that they weren't completely satisfied with the answers, right? Because it's so unknown. But a long time ago, that changed. And by now, there's plenty of answers and plenty of information where not only does that ignorance not really work anymore, do they just know too much for you can say like, well, I don't really know. Like my caseworker tried to say like, I'm not medical and the doctor said this, except for the doctor didn't say that, but like, so a long time ago that changed and that's no longer the case. And when they took her back this second time and they kept her for too long, like I said, over a year, they just did it like on purpose. And this second time they had far less reason to take her and even more reason not to take her, more reason to believe that wasn't the right option. And they still did it with lies, with misrepresentations of the court. The longer this has gone on, the further from the truth everything has become, the more lies. I mean, it's a mess. And it's been a mess. And I'm being completely honest with you. Like, I'm telling you the worst up front right now. Like, you're not going to find anything else out worse about me. And I'm doing that on purpose. Well, that's how I do it anyway, because the truth's going to come out no matter what I have to do to get it out. But and I'm going to get my daughter back. But this has got to stop. Like, this cannot continue. And this, like you said, and like I said, like, this breaks us. It's our children, and this breaks us. And I know why so many people. I never understood how people gave up before. Now I get it. I'm not going to do it. But now I get it. And so that's why, because I am so stubborn and I am holding on to my kids and that's why I'm going to keep fighting because, I'd like to have my kids to have some money too. But for everybody, this has to go through this. This has to stop. And until we fight it, it's going to keep going. They're going to keep doing it. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know what happened. Can you still see me or hear me at least?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So no.
We lost you there. Hopefully we'll get you back here in a second. Oh, it's just a shame that they keep getting away with doing things like this. Any of you guys else going through similar things, I am so sorry. And Kira is so right on with never stop fighting for your children, because if you don't, who else is going to? And as hard as it is, and as many times as you think that you can't get any further or you won't be able to win, just keep pushing. No matter how much you think that it's over, you just got to keep trying. It's very difficult. They break you down on purpose, and everybody is in cahoots with each other. It is so difficult and so unfair, and our children are the ones who are suffering here. So it, makes it very difficult. We're just trying to get Kira back here so we can hear the rest of her story. That just breaks my heart to hear this. These poor children, I just don't understand it. And I saw in some of the comments, somebody was saying that they just lost their child today. It was taken away. I am so sorry to hear that. If you would like to call in to the show, we would love to hear it. What's happening?
Hello.
There we go. Hey, are you back?
Yeah, I am. Okay. So, yeah. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I hope maybe God did that. Maybe I needed to take a breath because I get so worked up. But if it's okay, do you want me to start where I left off? Like,
it's up to you. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So, and tell me if you have any questions or I need to slow down or whatever. Just let me know because I'm passionate.
I am just curious. At this point when they took her away again, did you still have your private attorney at that point?
I did, but my retainer on her had run out a long time ago, so she's been court appointed. She it does feel like it changed to me, and regardless of why this is happening, whether it has to do with court appointed or not, because she says it doesn't. I know that things are happening that should not legally happen, and someone should be able to do something about this. And that's supposed, as far as I'm concerned, that's supposed to be her. And I tell her that all the time. But I know that. So I want to say this because I feel like it's important, and it's kind of where I left off. But when I got her back for those 5 months, right away, this hospital immediately started and I don't know. I was told Children's Services told them to do what they did, but regardless of what happened, they started calling, and they'd call me and say, come in right now. My daughter would be fine. I'd have to, I had to do my son's school, whatever. I didn't jump in there. They say I missed an appointment. They did everything that they could. Like I said, I feel as if there were some liability concerns. In fact, my first thought about that was when I requested the records in the beginning of this, and I didn't get them all, and they told me that they weren't giving them all to me, and that and I still have it, and that they knew I could file a court order to get them, but at this time they were going to reserve their right not to give them all because some of them could hurt somebody. That's what it says, and so that was maybe like what is that about, and even just questions I started asking them once I got her back about things that were going on, because when she came back there were things there were things that were happening and that you could see that shouldn't have been, that were happening when she was gone, and I was seeing the evidence of it now. And when I would ask them about it, they'd be like, no comment, or I'm like, what is this? I'm not so anyway, what I wanted to say is that when I got her back, and the hospital social workers, not even doctors, but the social workers there would make calls to Children's Hospital and say, I missed an appointment or whatever they would say. They opened a case. They opened a brand new case on me for neglect. And this guy that worked for Children's Services, who no longer works for them, I'm not sure exactly why, but he investigated it and he closed it unsubstantiated. So right after they took her again, a couple weeks later, I got it in the mail that they had actually unsubstantiated all of that. So still to this day, neglect hasn't been picked back up. It's never been proven. It never will be proven. In fact, to me, that says disproven. To me, I know that's not necessarily what it says, but it definitely said unsubstantiated. They took her back anyway, and they went into court and they said things that weren't true so that it would warrant them taking her back and getting what they want. And so this has been and I should say this too, when she was gone the first time, not only were things not being addressed that need to be addressed, that are finally now being addressed with the other foster mom she's at. And it's unfortunate why she ended up getting moved. I will tell you that in a minute, but I'm glad that she did. And I know that it's also all in God's hands, because now she's addressing the things I was addressing. So it's really interesting too, how when they had her, they first took her from me, and she's with this other woman who was okay. I mean, it's sad how we have to be so grateful for the ones that are just okay, because they can be so bad, you know. Because you're like, well, at least she was okay. But basically, she wasn't addressing a lot of things, and maybe she just didn't know. My daughter's a very complex case, but now, and they were just making it be like, oh, well, see, she's fine now. It's basically blaming it on me. But now she's with a woman who used to have like nursing in her background, and now she's doing the same things I was doing, addressing the same issues I was addressing that they were not addressing. And also, when she was the first time she was taken, and she was with the first foster mom, and that's who they put her back with when they took her at first. I have all these pictures and all these times that I tried to report through my attorney to their attorney, these concerns that I had about her feet being shoved into baby feet that were obviously too small, or bruises on her faces, or burns on her. I mean, things that were questioning and concerning to anybody who saw it, and they would brush it under the rug and minimize it and not. And I have all these things that happened that they didn't. And even the least of these concerns, and that's not all of them, but even the least of these concerns that are legitimate, that I have proof of for these places she had been, they are not equivalent to the most of the concerns they have for me. Like, none of that happened with my daughter, is what I'm trying to say, when she was with me. She was never, I did anything I could to protect her, even from her own father when he was active, even when he caught us. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then they took that from me. And when they took that from me, she got hurt. And so what I want to say, and then I'm going to try to take a breath, and maybe you might have a question about something. But when they took her back and put her with the other woman, and mind you, the nurse that we didn't have any actual nursing services. I was asking to get those started, some kind of aid service or something. They wouldn't do that. But there was a nurse that would come here weekly to weigh her, and she did not sign up on my team. Like, when she came over here, she had known me through that situation. So I know she was apprehensive. I could tell by the way she was, and I'm just an open book. I act like this all the time. So some people don't necessarily like me or don't know how to take me, but she is still, to this day, I hear from the foster mom, we don't talk that much, because she was like threatened basically to take off my daughter's case if she kept talking to me. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
but
my gosh.
Yeah, but she's one of my biggest, like, in the background, like, one of my biggest supporters. Like, she tells these foster parents, like, she didn't do anything. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, and she's like the one who has been involved the most and knows the most. But when she was taken back based on lies, based on, misrepresentations, that's whatever, complete, just lies is what it is. We try to say it nice, like misrepresented facts, but it's lies. When she was taken back, ultimately, the things weren't being addressed again, and they were, ignoring me, of course. And these are things, like I said before, like, she's vomiting, like she could die, like they know that, and they're just letting it happen. Like, it's not like but eventually, when they took her back when they gave her back and said, well, this is what the GAL said. I know I stepped back a couple steps, but the GAL at this court day, and she said many things that I would love to have the printout or something that she'd say in court, and people just let it go like it was okay. Like, but anyway, this isn't one of the most appalling, but one of the things she did say at the end was like, well, if this was a year ago, I would say she'd be with dad and everything's fine right now. But dad was given 3 things to do and he did none of them, and mom was given pages and she did them all. So I guess she's going back to mom. Like, that's what they said. That's how I got her back. And so, and when the foster, when the caseworker handed her back to me, my lawyer had always told me, still does, you have to be better than perfect. And I'm like, that's impossible. But I know why she says it though. But my caseworker would be like, no, you don't have to be perfect. But this time, because they set me up for this, she's like, okay, now listen to your lawyer, be better than perfect. Probably because if I was a fly on that wall, I'd tell you, they probably said, don't worry, we're going to keep her on drug screen. She's an addict. She's going to slip. We're going to catch her. But they didn't, and they won't. But still, they did take her. And when they took her back this last time, they did hand her to her dad on a silver platter, in spite of all of the reasons that they knew and the proof and evidence that they had as to why they shouldn't why he wasn't the place that she needed to go full time. You know, just because, you know, like just he wasn't even involved enough to say he could take her out full time.
I mean, he wasn't really, does he even have the experience to be able to take care of her? Because it doesn't sound like he's been involved, right?
Yeah, so he could meet her basic needs and for a limited period of time by himself. But you know, but because there are so many of them, when we were together, he helped. When this first happened, when I found out the mold was in our apartment, I actually sent her to be with him for a couple of weeks while I was getting me and my son, and we were in hotels and stuff like that. Okay. But then I took her back. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, yeah, based on that and the people that he had around him and the decisions that he was making, which also included abusing alcohol and, you know, smoking sometimes, and the fact that they knew about these things, but they didn't have him drop it screen in hardly ever. They stopped him from having to scream because he couldn't drop clean. They handed my daughter to him on a silver platter, and when they did that, I still to this day don't know what happened, but I know he's getting another charge. Like I say another because he caught the one case coming into my house, putting his hands on me in front of the kids, and just recently pled that down, and then he caught it, and that's really the worst of him. Honestly, I hate to even speak bad on him like that, but that's just a bad decision he made, and it affected my kids and I. But now he's going to be facing a charge for child endangerment. But I feel strongly that they should be facing something because there's no reason they should have given her to him. There's actually every reason they should not have, and they did. And something happened where she has scars all over her little body, all over her little back, all from around her little none of those happened in my care, and they still don't know what to tell me happened. For 6 weeks after this happened, my son and I didn't even see her, and they'd always had some excuse for it, but it was still crap. You know, we didn't see her. And I don't know what happened. And but she got hurt with them. She got hurt on their watch and with him, and that should have never happened. I did everything, even when I was in my addiction. My kids didn't get hurt. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was a long time ago. It shouldn't have happened. And my daughter had experienced chaos she should have never experienced. But man, I did everything I could to keep my kids safe, especially now. That's why I stay sober. You know, a lot of times. That's why I don't date. You know, I do everything I can to keep them sober or to keep them safe, no matter what I have to do. And they took that from me, and they hurt her. And now, and I could see for a while too, like I feel better that she's back with this woman she's with now, even though I mean, and I plan to keep in touch with her too, because I think she does well with her, you know, and I don't want the trauma. That's more trauma for my kid too, you know. Yeah. They were going to move her back into the other place. They had to move her from there because of what happened to my daughter. They had to investigate, whatever they call it, between her and dad, and you know what. But they were going to move her back, and you know what? I'm going to tell you, I know why they were going to move her back. Because they were going to file for PC just based off the fact that she had been with her for that long. That's why I know it is, because that's why I lost my other ones, or my first one, and I could have lost my second one, and because their reason at that point, because I had done everything I needed to do at that point, I had done what I needed to do, but because it had been a year. You know what I mean? They had that time, and so it didn't matter what I had done. They'd been here for a year, and so I know that their plan was to try to do that with her this time too, because there's no reason for them to hold on to her the way that they're holding on to her, just to let it time out, just to see if I'm going to break. And if they had been able to keep her in that one place, I do feel that that's what they would have tried to do. You know, I still get worried about them trying to do it now, but. Since she hasn't been in that place, I think it would make it a little bit more difficult. Also, they know I'm going to fight and I'm not going to fold, so they're going to have to take it to trial, and they're going to have to prove what they got. And so, you know, my son, he's doing great with me. There was some time that this is what I wanted to say though. So he had some, like last year there was some attendance thing with him. They were directly related to the way that they kept her and gave her back, not just because of the trauma and the conflicts that him and I we had in the morning, and his fear of going to school and stuff like that, but because when they sent her back to me with like 3 days notice and no support put in place, I couldn't be but one place at a time. In the middle of winter, I couldn't walk my 8-year-old son to the bus and take my daughter out with special needs and get him to the bus and stuff like that. And so that was when school got back in person. Before it was in person, they were basing his attendance not off of him being there, but off of him completing his assignments the way they wanted him to, which is not attendance. But that's what they did. So I ended up getting a truancy subsequently filed from last year. However, it was recently dismissed. They dismissed it. They dropped it. We improved this year. It is not an issue. We had some issues because of busing, and everybody in my city is having issues with busing and stuff. But this true to them children's services showing their colors and what they're trying to do in our situation, which is keep their claws on us as long as they possibly can and hope that I just fold. As soon as that truancy was dropped, they filed an educational neglect. I could show you right now 5 certificates that my son's won over the past couple months. Like, we're killing it. He's doing great. Like, they're not going to get educational neglect, just like they didn't get medical neglect. It's never going to happen. They're not going to win. And then when this is finally over, and I'm able to finally make, because when this is happening too, I need to take a breath for a minute and pause. Yeah. Want to ask questions, but when this is happening, no one wants to listen to you. No one believes what you say. And I know why. If I wasn't living this, like I said, I wouldn't believe it. I would think I was something else I wasn't saying, or something else going on. Right. And I think, well, something happened to get them taken,
and that's what everyone thinks. Everyone who has not been through it really puts their nose down at people who do get their children taken away. And until you have been through this, I mean, really, it is just unbelievable. And then when you talk about it, it sounds so crazy that people just automatically think, well, we have a nutcase here, and that's obviously not the case. Not at all.
I know.
What surprises me is that you're able to have your son, so you're a good enough mother to have your son, but not your daughter. And they took her away because, if I understand right, because you missed a couple of tests or whatever. Even if your drug test came back dirty, they would take your son away as well. So if they didn't take away your son, this is a mess.
I'm not, it wasn't because of the test. That's just what they add in there to make it have some validity. Because you're right. If they thought for a second I was using, they would have taken him because they would have had to. Yeah, they'd be right if they didn't. Right. They know that I'm not. That's just what they're holding on to because that's all they have. Right. The real reason that, and because they had like that history in me, and that's true, but it's old, years old. You know what I mean? And it's not true anymore. But like, it was just because of her unexplained weight loss, which has happened with them, which can be linked to her genetic condition, which things have happened, like I said, that point to more than just the genetic condition, which aren't me. And beyond that, like, there was also like, because I'm trying to tell you everything. Beyond that, like in the beginning, they said I had missed appointments. I hadn't missed appointments. I had rescheduled some appointments because just like I told them, I was having trouble juggling his appointments, my appointments, her appointments, all me with no dad help, But I have always made the right call with my kids. Every time my intuition's on point with them. Every time I've made a call, or even now, even with her in custody, especially with her in custody, and I've had to put a fight up about all of it. Every time I said something, I've been right. Every time. Even now, they're about to be doing a gastric emptying test, which most people probably don't know what that is. I barely do, and I wouldn't know anything about it if it wasn't for this. I did my own research, like the formula that I had to fight to get her switched, and looked into this, and have been talking about this for, this specific thing, just to use an example, for a while. And now they're going to do this test. So, and I'm looking at the caseworker every time something like this happens, like, hey, remember this? Remember I was talking about this? And now that they're doing it, and it's like, she just shrugs her shoulders, or she says, it's not me. It's my supervisor. So I'm like, what nameless, faceless person is this that's making these calls? It's never met me or my kids. And it's insane. And you're right, it does. It sounds so crazy. I know it sounds crazy. But this is my life. Like, right. I feel it's only because I can look at my son and sometimes just out of pure grit and being stubborn, that I'm not going to let them win, and I'm not going to give up and lose my kids, that I don't fold, and that I am still able to hold on to reality. Because I swear, like, sometimes I felt like it's fucking like the Twilight Zone, like the Matrix. What are they doing? Yeah. Like, I've looked at the caseworker and said to her a lot recently whenever I see her monthly, you know, when she stops in, I'm like, what's the deal here? What are we doing? What's the goal? You say reunification. What do you, where, I'm not getting my business increased. None of that. And she shrugs her shoulders. She says it's not her. She says, I don't know. She says, it doesn't matter, or that's my job. I mean, these are the best answers that I get from her. And what I mean by it doesn't matter, that's my job, is when I'll point out the many positive things that I do for my kids by myself, against all odds, in spite of the barriers that I shouldn't even have to point out, but I do because I'm defending myself and pointing things out. And she looks at me and says, that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, you know, it's just condescending. Or when I say, you know why he was missing school, and she's like, it doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? Why doesn't the truth matter? Why, you know? So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, you're really going through it. So is your case still open, or is it? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Do you get visits with your daughter?
Yeah. Yep. I get it's see, and we're coming up on the year now too. So it hasn't been dismissed and refiled like the last time because it's post adjudication. So we went through on the dependency, and so now it's just like, okay, well, they took her back and they didn't file a new one. You know, they just the last month tried to file that educational neglect, but now I'm finding that humorous because now I know, like, now they're looking desperate for real. I mean, come on, who's not seeing this? But so they took her based on not a new charge, because clearly, like I said, it got unsubstantiated at that time. So just they said that she needed removed again. And since she was removed, you know, more things have happened than happened before. More things have happened. All the things that happened with me and more. Her weight went up and down, all of that. So we're coming up on this. This is the second time she was removed, and we're coming up on a year again. So I feel like only because that had to happen, because I really think in my gut that if she stayed with that same foster mom, they'd be filing for PC right now just because. That's what I think. But I think that because, I think so. And but I think that because they weren't able to do that, and because I haven't folded and I'm not going to fold, that I'm probably going to get her back again, you know, soon, probably, because it's coming up on a year. So there's that time. Like they're going to have to.
So what are the social workers or the courts, or what are they saying that they want you to do in order to get your daughter back?
They're not saying anything. They say they bring up drug screens. So, you know, second, mind you, I already. Like they'll bring that up, but just like I've done them. I've done some. I've done a lot of them though. You know what I mean? Like I go weekly, and I get drug screened from my doctors because I'm on medications, and they watch me with my history. People that are actually qualified. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so it's crap. It's just the only thing they're able to hold on to. And my attorney will be like, well, you know, just do them. I get it. Like that, I set out to do that, but I have to do everything. I'm the one who has to do everything. I have to be there for my son for everything. I have to make sure everything's okay. No one else is picking up the pieces. You know what I mean? So if I can't make it for whatever reason, so one of their screens, one of their weeks, that's not active protection, and they know it.
Yeah, you know, and I don't know how it works out there, but in California, it's like on a call system where you have to call every day, and if your color comes up, you just have to go. You know, how are you supposed to work and have a normal job or go to school or whatever with the way they have it? Plus, they want you to go to perinatal classes 2 to 3 times a week, plus meet with your counselor, plus the visits, and then they make it as hard as possible with scheduling, like almost intentionally, so you can't make it. Even if you're like 5 minutes late, they cancel it on you, and they make it as difficult as possible. And
they haven't even added, and I didn't sign the second case plan because I signed not that it matters a whole lot, you know what I mean, but I didn't sign it because I signed the first one and I completed it and it didn't matter. And the second one is saying a whole bunch of stuff that I already do, and it's pointless to sign, you know what I mean? And they don't add a whole lot for me to do other than the urine screen, because I'm already doing everything that I could possibly need to do. I was doing it before they came because of our history and our lives, and I care about my kids and our mental and emotional well-being. Like me being who I am and my issues, I have to stay on top of that. So I was already doing that. And like I said, I got me and him into an intensive home-based counseling through one of our community providers who comes here and sees us 3 times a week. And that was on my own referral, who was supportive of us. And so I'm having to get us into more things because of my response to their trauma to us, but they're not really adding a whole lot more because there's not much more they can do. All they can say is something about drug. Literally, that's all they ever come up with is, oh, well, you know, in the past she missed 2 drug screens, meaning I did 12. I missed, you know, like, but, and I have this other place that's got stacks of them where I'm clean.
Right.
It's just, and that's just,
you know, life happens and things come up where you can't always make it to their, you know, appointments they want you to jump through. But it's wonderful that you are also getting tested through another doctor. You know, I had issues with them trying to say that I shit you not, one of my drug tests came back positive for everything. And my counselor had told me, she goes, this is really strange. And I know that it's not possible, but you have tested positive for everything. So I made it a point to go get tested somewhere else. But that comes out of my pocket, and not being able to work because of your scheduling, not being able to hire an attorney because now I can't work to pay for it. You know, they make it so impossible. And you're doing great. I mean, the fact you have your son is so wonderful, and it sounds like you have your head on the right track here, and you're doing your homework, it looks like, and good for you. Are you in contact with the public defender at this point?
She's court appointed. Was when I retained. Yes, I'm in contact with her. I am in less contact with her than I was in the beginning, and she'll even say stuff to me about that sometimes. But honestly, it's because I'm sick of hearing the same thing I hear. Like I come to her, and it ends up being switched around, and it feels like I'm talking to them. You know what I mean? So I'm like, what are we? You know, and I'm like, none of you, including you, haven't caught me in a lie yet. And if you had, you'd be holding on to it, and it hasn't happened. But I know I sat here and saw you in court, talked to my attorney, and watch your jaw drop, I don't know how many times, about things that they've come out of their mouth and they've lied. And you have the audacity every time I come to you with an issue to turn it, to allow them to send us through some kind of rabbit hole where I have to defend myself. So I'm sick of that. So no, I don't call her a whole lot, but I'm in touch with her enough. And I have a parent mentor who is, it's a good person to have because I requested her. And I'm glad I did because of my fight with them before. You know, I ended up doing family drug court at that time. It was appropriate. I'm glad I did. I definitely wouldn't have got him back if I hadn't. That's the only thing that, like I said, other than God and the GALs who did their job, and the fact that I jumped through those hoops at that time and had those people on my side, you know, I had a fighting chance to get my kid, to get my son. Otherwise, I would have lost him like I did, you know, my daughter.
Right.
But like, and that's a whole other, you know, cause that wasn't supposed to happen. But anyway, so I know a little bit about that. You know what I mean? I've even said, shoot, you want me to go back to drug court? No, they don't. Cause they know I don't have a drug problem right now. So I have a parent mentor that she comes to our visits. They haven't increased them. They are the exact same that the 2 hours once a week. They are in my home now because a few months ago, like my attorney asked, because they're not doing the reunification, they're not doing the steps. They never have for me with any of my kids. They've never, all they've ever done is hold on to them, and then if I get them back, barely I get them back. But so my attorney asked for like supervised visits. That happened, but it never increased. And a few months ago, it was supposed to. Everything's like a few months, but like 6-5 months ago, we asked for it to increase, and the magistrate was like, okay, yeah, but their attorney, who is just, she's Satan. She was like, well, can we just put some parameters on it where it's not a court order, but if we need to step in and stop, they made it seem like it was like for safety. They didn't ask for this with their dad, which they needed. They knew they don't need that with me, but they put it out like that. And I'm even nodding my head like, yeah, sure, whatever, make the GAL have to sign off on it. What they did with that is they just haven't increased it. They just said, okay, yeah, we don't have to. We're allowed to, but we don't have to. So they don't. So it's Sunday, 2 hours every, and yeah, I still see her. And I'm not, it's a mess though. Like she's hurting, and she's going to hurt when she has to be talking to other people too. And it's wrong. These other people are going to have to hurt because they're attached to her. Yeah. And these foster homes, decent foster homes, like the one she has now, that, they talk about how overloaded they are and, how they're, well, maybe if you didn't take kids that didn't need to be taken, then those homes would go to kids that need to be taken, come on. And know how broken the system is. So yeah, I know how much this sounds crazy, like you said you do. And I want to believe the bullshit as much as anybody else, because this is messed up. The truth is just so twisted, but this is the truth. And like this has got to stop. Like this is not
got to, absolutely. When I was going through my ordeal in court, I didn't have the privilege of having, YouTube or the show. I have learned so much from Vince Davis and this whole show in the last few months, or I should say like the last year. And I would have done anything to have this when I was going through my ordeal. I got to court the first time and they say, well, we go off hearsay and that's it. They made a deal with me in the hallway. I didn't even see the judge with the investigative worker. Never could hear from her ever again. And nothing she said actually happened. And, you don't know that what they're doing is against the law, because you think, okay, well, I'm in the court, they're mandated to do their job, what they're supposed to do. So this is what is the deal, right? But no. And I didn't even realize that technically the social worker's job is to present the case, and it's your job to show the courts whether, it's true or not. And nobody gave me that chance ever. And like you were saying, it has got to stop. And fortunately, with social media the way it is, and more people telling their stories like you, thank you, we can make something happen, and it has to stop. This is just so sad, and our children are suffering. We are suffering. And I mean, really, there's no words that can even be said to, make this right. Or, I mean, all we can do is just keep fighting, right? As hard as it seems sometimes.
And this is the time too. It's just like all of the things that are finally come to light, these things that have been going on for years and decades in our society.
Decades,
all of these things, it's just like that. It's just as bad as the worst of them, because these are our children suffering, and us, and our generations and generations. They get to go. This isn't a job for us. When I get my kids back, it's not over. She'll live with this forever, and one way or another, even she doesn't remember it, and then her kids will, like. This is, and that's the truth. We know that's reality. Like that's been proven now scientifically to a certain extent. So this is the time, like we're talking about. I mean, I'm all about it. My children are biracial. I'm as white as I am. I'm all for, the movements that we have going on, but this needs to be a part of that. This is just serious. But it's harder to fight because of the way it's set up. It's set up for us, people like us, to lose. But you know what? Just like the opiate epidemic that didn't become an epidemic or on anybody's radar until it started hitting people's homes that had money, this is going to do it too. This doesn't stop here. This is going to go into your homes too. Even if it comes down to wait till your daughter falls in love with my son and look at those core issues. You know what I mean? Like they need to hear. I know that sounds crazy, but like here. But it's true though. You know what I mean? It's true.
Absolutely.
It's true, and it's sad, and I'm really grateful as well. Like I said, I was so nervous, and I'm still nervous, and I'm going to watch this with my kid later, but I'm going to probably repeat myself. But I'm very, very grateful that I had this opportunity as well. I've been gut-wrenching about it because like I don't expect everybody to be like pro, on my team like that. Like I said, I look bad on paper. I have a history. I'm not perfect, but I know where I stand now. I know what's right now. I know that I'm on the right side and have been for a very long time. And I know that this is worth fighting, and that there's a reason that this happened. And I don't think it's just for us to have to go. Like, I think that God wants me to help this fight. I think that God wants me to be a part of something changing here, because
I'm in the same boat as you. I completely agree. There's no way that we have been through all of this for nothing. There's no way that God put us through this just to suffer. I have to do something about this, and I will take this as far as I can. Even when I was going through it in the beginning with my child, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And I would say, like, I'm going to go to the news. I'm going to go to the president if I have to. Like, something has to be done. And the more and more people that come out and tell their story and get together, the more chances we have of that actually happening. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Is there any that you
I'm willing to help anytime with anything. Ever.
Is there any advice you can give to the viewers out there who are going through the same thing? If like something that you wish you would have known sooner, or just anything really?
Well, I wish I had something more valuable. At this point, all I can say, and truthfully, because as I said from the beginning, I want it to be truthful and from a real place, I would say to try the best to jump through their hoops, even though I have admittedly fallen short from perfect. I would say that clearly is, no matter how wrong it is, the best way to go about trying it. But at the end of the day, the one thing other than that I can say, and that I stand by, is that just not to give up, just not to give up, because it's so hard. Like I said, I never understood before. I'm like, how could someone just give up on their kids? I never got it, but now I get it, man. Now I get it. And I don't even know how I haven't given up, but just don't give up, because all it takes is if I were to relapse one time, then none of this would matter. All of this would be true. They would win, and that would be that. And so I'm not going to let it happen. And so I know not everybody is always able to be as stubborn necessarily. That's why I'm one of the people that I feel needs to be continuing the fight. But I think that some people sell themselves short, and maybe they can be more stubborn, so just don't give up and try to band together with other people. Like I said, I'm grateful to be on here, and at any time in any way that I can be a help to this, I want to be a part of it. And I think that I believe in us. We're women, we're powerful. We've been just like Black and brown people have been held down and oppressed for years. So have we. Women have been oppressed. All of us. And so that's changing a little bit, but not really, not enough. We are powerful, and our power is really within our love, and our love for our children is that's where it's at. So I believe in it. I believe in us, and I don't think I have anything else to say that's any more helpful than that.
Well, perfect. Thank you again for sharing your story. If there's any viewers out there who would like to share your story, please send us a message. We would love to hear it. Kira, I wish you the best, and keep us posted. I will keep you in my prayers, and I really appreciate you calling in.
Yeah,
have a
thank you.
wonderful night, everyone.
You too. I'll talk to you later.
Bye. I'll speak to you later.